want to, before we end, I do want to like get in the hard sell still about why I think Howard Terminal still can be a great idea. And it is transforming a parking lot uh, on the water into not only the stadium but a ton of new housing. Um, and for me, uh, I think that the biggest problem the Bay Area has is not losing its sports teams, but just the price of housing, the affordability crisis in the city. And as you know, they're gonna maybe, hopefully they'll have a bunch of affordable housing. As an economist, the things that I've seen is it's like affordable housing is great, but any housing is the most important. Just building new housing is so critical. And I think that even if the A's leave, I hope Howard Terminal gets built out into something that has a ton of new housing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can tell you
Yeah,
too how that not just the fact that they need it, hopefully to help prices and everything, but the other thing is they're woefully short on their targeted goal of new units created in Oakland, and they're so
yep.
woefully behind that they will actually be fined for it if they can't come up with the right number. And
They're like,
3,000 will help a lot.
there's remedy.
Yeah.
That's so messed up.
Yeah, no, it's just so necessary. And I think I have a ton of sympathy for Oakland itself being asked to front all this money for such expensive stuff. And I think, the reason why all this infrastructure is so expensive, can come back to a lot of things. Casey, you read, I think, most of the EIR itself.
Yeah, there's train tracks going through there. There's really no sidewalks. I mean, if you walk around Howard Terminal, the sidewalk basically ends and it's trains.
It ends.
Like they
Yeah,
need
it's just
there's
it's just
no
semi trucks and fences. Like that's it.
semi trucks, fences, trains,
I
and it's dangerous down there, frankly,
I
and that needs
biked
to be
on
resolved. Yeah.
Yeah, when I bike on Third Street, I mean, there's potholes. The potholes are so big. I'm reminded of when I lived in Chicago. When they had freeze and thaw all the time. But those potholes are so big because of all these semis.
Yeah.
But there's just so much work that needs to be done, and all of the laws in California um, add expense. The EIR. You could probably do this for cheaper if it wasn't for the CEQA laws. There would be a lot more money to throw around if we didn't have this affordability crisis, and politicians weren't saying like we need 30% 30% of affordable housing. That costs a lot of money. We could be spending that money on the offsite infrastructure. There's a lot of reasons why I think California has made it more expensive to do this.
I'd
But
heard that the A's spent about 30 million just to get the EIR certified. So yes, added costs are indeed a factor here.
it's huge added costs, but California, the rules in California make it so expensive. But at the end of the day, I think I have not been impressed with the job that the A's have done in pushing this forward. I I, I don't understand why. When this first started, I thought this is great. Like the A's have a built-in fan base; they can just bring tons of people to meetings. They can build billboards and say, hey, let's get this thing done. It seemed to me that after they lost that term sheet vote in 2021, when Cavill said, this is the term sheet we have, it's my way or the highway, and they lost that. It seems like that they've been really tentative with using any of that. There has not, all the organizing of fans at votes has come from fans, all the, or from the trade unions. You haven't heard Dave Cavill say, there have been like a couple emails to season ticket holders, but I still don't know. I still genuinely don't know why, the A's weren't announcing during baseball season when they had votes on this, hey, everyone go to these meetings,
Well, the meetings were via Zoom. Like they couldn't really get people to a lot of them. We got to keep in mind there's pandemic things that happened as well. But what was interesting is the A's got to July, the term sheet Hal just mentioned. The A's plan had both offsite and onsite infrastructure covered. The city's plan took the offside out, and they said the city themselves would cover
Yeah,
that.
they'd figure it out.
Then the city fell short. So, I mean, really, it's not all on the A's, and it's also the A's. It's not really their infrastructure that's messed up either. So, I mean, there's plenty of blame on the city side. There's plenty of blame on the A's side, because I think most billionaires would have just probably coughed up and gotten this thing done by now. But that is a very important distinction to make, that the city themselves wanted to pay for that offsite infrastructure, which they're now saying they cannot afford.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we got 2 minutes left, so I'm just gonna ask Casey for his closing thoughts, because I'm still cheap. I gotta pay for Zoom at some point. Right now we're still on the 40-minute limits. But I don't know. You guys got some closing thoughts? You guys got got about a minute or so here.
All right. Well, I mean, I think a closing thought for me, I'll just jump off what Hal just said, in that I really think that the A's sort of misplayed this in a way. I think they tuned out a bit after July. They didn't use their power to fire people up, fire up the fan base. But what also happened in that time frame is they had the opportunity to either kind of hang on to Chapman and Olsen and maybe just throw a couple more guys around them and just stick to it a little bit. And they tore down the whole roster. And I think that when people see an A's team that loses 100 games and drives zero interest from a baseball standpoint, that means people in this area aren't engaged, energized, and fired up to get the A's a new stadium. That means people in Las Vegas aren't entertained, energized, fired up to bring the A's here. Like, why would anybody want the A's at this point? And I think that was a misfire on their part.
Yeah. There's a great John Boyes YouTube documentary about the Seattle Mariners. And he talks about when they were trying to get their new stadium funded. And right at that, when the vote took place, they made the playoffs for the first time. You know, they had Ken Griffey Jr., they had Alex Rodriguez, they had Randy Johnson, and they lost to the vote by just a smidgen. But there was so much pride in the team at that point that the state of Washington said, okay, we lost the public vote, but you know what? Screw it. Like, everyone's behind this team. Let's get behind it. It is, I think, boy, every single time they've had a decision, they've decided to take the cheap way. And it might work, and they might save a lot of money, but,
at what cost?